All right, we're going to do Matthew chapter 5, verse 27 to 30. I'll read it. It says, "You have heard that it was said to those of old, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into Gehenna." Oh, I did want to mention that before. Missed that part. See on the other video. The danger of fire of Gehenna was mentioned. Okay, that place is real. Gehenna is real. Gehenna is hot. Okay, and it's a hot that you will feel. In this assembly, we do not believe that when you die, you just cease to exist and everything is black and then you just wake up the judgment day. I don't believe that here. As a leader here, as an elder here, I do not believe that. I believe in Abraham's bosom, just like the parable that Yahusha spoke. I believe there's a wicked side and there's the righteous side, and the wicked side is hot, but it's not as hot as the lake of fire is going to be. I believe that's hotter and it's worse. But Gehenna and death and sin will be thrown into the lake of fire. Okay, that's a different topic, but just letting you know this is real. So what profit is it that one of your members perish? It will be more profitable that if one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into Gehenna. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off, cast it from you. For it is more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into Gehenna. This is why a lot of people are going to be thrown into the lake of fire and into Gehenna, is because ain't nobody trying to cut their arms off and, and take their eyes out. Ain't nobody trying to do that. But Yahusha's giving us the way out. If this is your problem, he's giving you the way out. Some people want to spiritualize this and say, oh no, this is an idiom, this is a saying. What if it's not? What if it's not? Justine, and then Ezzy.
So you think that this is actually literal, that there's, like, this is literal. Like, for instance, for me, something I struggle with a lot is patience in my words. Like, would it be more profitable to literally cut out your tongue?
I would, yeah, it's not talking about patience in the tongue. It's talking about adultery. And however, I get what you're trying to say. It would depend on the severity of the tongue. If you're one of those people that gossips and causes dissension in assemblies, I would say it might be good to cut your tongue off. Either that or you really stop. But if you don't stop, you're not going to get in the kingdom if you are an abomination to Yahuwah. Because that's one of the things that are an abomination to him, is a person that causes dissension amongst the brothers. So, I mean, it's your choice. You can either pray that you get delivered from it, right? Or you cut your tongue off so you can stop talking. Or neither happens and you don't get into the kingdom. So one of the evidences that you are being delivered is progress. If there's no sign of progress, then that's not good for you. And the only person that really knows that is Yahuwah and a good elder, a shepherd that could sniff you out. If you're somebody that's just, cause division in 10 other fellowships and then you coming up in here, it's going to take good discernment from a good elder, a good shepherd, and some good, disciples and leaders to be like, yo, I don't know about this one. Hope that answers your question. You have a follow-up question on that?
No, just simply like, so to stay in context, because after I asked her the question, you said, since it's talking about adultery, so somebody who is struggling with like lust and things of that nature, because we know in the world that we're living in now, the aim is so much towards sexual nature, just kind of like how Balaam caused Israel to sin. instead of being able to curse them, he had to bless them, but he caused them to sin by bringing them into adultery, right, with the women who were not Israel.
Yeah.
And so it would be more profitable for a man who struggles to like take his eyes out instead of like removing himself. That's crazy.
Have you ever heard a guy say, I can't help it. I can't help myself. I have a problem with this. Have you ever heard a guy say that? I have. I have heard of narcissists. I've heard of some crazy men who are like, I can't help it. I got this thing. I got this addiction, and I got to do it. But I'm sorry, and but it's like that to me is a big problem. So either, again, I think 1 Corinthians chapter 5 is a good scripture because it talks about getting rid of these people. Let Hasatan devour their flesh. Maybe that has a little something to do with this passage. Maybe he'll cause some organs to stop functioning. Who knows? But I don't know. I'm only imposing that. Why wouldn't this be physical? Why couldn't it be? Would we look at a person weird that says, yo, I did this surgery on myself because I had a sexual addiction and I didn't even want to get married because I'm afraid that I would, so I did this to myself. Would we respect that, or we look at that person as weird? I think we ought to consider this passage and that person's situation prayerfully. That dude he might have done a righteous act, I believe. And I think the passage Yahusha brings up about eunuchs, that some are born eunuchs, some make themselves eunuchs. How are you born a eunuch? Here's what I've heard about this topic. Eunuch just means celibate, or how is somebody born? There's no marriage concept when you're a baby. So how are you born like that? I believe eunuch definitely has to do with your body part not being present. Okay? And then there are some that do it to themselves for the kingdom's sake. So Yahusha does talk about this. I wish I would have the cross reference. I don't have it right now. But all right, one more, Justine. Then I'm going to move on to Ezzy and then Milo. Go ahead.
Since you're talking about eunuchs, doesn't in Kings, when it's talking about Jezebel having made eunuchs, having a form of not operating in the masculinity that you were made to operate in?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of more.
You'd have to find that for me. I'm not sure what you're referencing to, but I do know that
it's in Kings. I don't have the exact reference. I need to. Sorry. Next time I will. Sorry.
Yeah, and then I do believe in Isaiah. I think my wife referenced it today on the Torah portion. Isaiah 56 talks about Yahuwah will redeem the eunuchs as well as being part of his people. So something to consider. Ezzy.
So just the cross reference that you were talking about is Matthew 19, 11 through, I guess 12, 11 and 12. But that's not where I was going. What was I going to say? We were in, about cutting it off. Now you said some people want to spiritualize it. I don't want to spiritualize it, but it does say pluck it out or throw it away. So, I mean, I would think that it also includes an action, not just, saying it or whatever, and perhaps cutting it off physically. But when it says to throw it away, certain devices are there that aid in idolatry, in addiction and certain things like that. So literally throwing it away, or for me, a trigger for me is certain relationships. So I can't deal with certain people because it brings up, those familiar activities, if you will. So I think it's both, not to spiritualize it, but also, throwing it away or getting rid of it or removing it from your life. So that way you're not committing the same thing. I don't know. It's just something that I get.
I got you. Yeah, I think the passage here is definitely talking about the body parts. The object here is, for example, your right hand causing you to sin. It says, cut it off and cast it from you. Not the sin, but the hand. However, which one is more important? Right? I would say before it gets to the hand, before it manifests in your members, it has manifested in your mind and your heart. So deliverance is definitely the ideal solution so that you don't have to lose limbs and eyes and stuff. However, just consider what Yahuwah is saying. I think he's very, very physically, he's very physical in this explanation. It's better for you to get into the kingdom without these body parts than for you to get into the kingdom with all the body parts, or you won't get into the kingdom. So anyway, go ahead.
It's so interesting. If I had to entertain that thought, the reality of it, right? Think of, okay, because I used to think, in a sense, well, if you pluck out one, literally, you still have your others. So you got yeah. But then I'm thinking at the same time, if you pluck out one, you physically have a consequence. Mm-hmm. You're physically like, I don't want to lose this other one. It's a check, right? But I just wanted to throw something randomly out there as physical now. In Deuteronomy 25, in regards to cutting things off, this is a different context, but just you'll get the thing. Deuteronomy 25:11-12 says, when men strive together one with another, and the wife of the one draws near to deliver her husband out of the hands of him who strikes him, and puts forth her hand and takes him by the private parts, then you shall cut off her hand. Your eye shall have no pity. So I'm just saying it's not
That's related.
Foreign.
It's related, yeah.
Okay. I was just saying the idea of physically, there's a physical consequence in this. That was an actual sin that she committed, right? This is also sin. But I want to get to, because I'm not going to say it's physical. I'm just going to say this. When I look at this, I think of this aspect of not only what he's actually talking about, adultery of a single person, but also the body that we were talking about, like literally the body of Yahusha. To me, when I see this, I don't know why, but my spirit resonates to get rid of the cancers. Those who come in and have those adulterous ways in their hearts, have those idolatries in their hearts, have that wickedness, that slander. Get rid of them, because it is better. For example, if we have this assembly here and one person is just crazy causing dissension and just bringing in sin in the camp. That's basically what I hear when I see this. I see the individual and also the body. If you're bringing sin in the camp, it's better that you remove that, you cut that off so that the rest of the body can move forward. And it sounds harsh, but sometimes we got to kick people to the curb. And you mentioned, I think you said, was it 1 Corinthians where it says, let the devil go and have his way so that hopefully their spirit can come back. So I know this is talking about the physical body in the sense of adultery and stuff like that, but for some reason I keep seeing the physical body of Messiah and what we're supposed to do in his body as well. I think that makes sense.
Okay. Now again, he starts off with, it was said. So I think it's man's interpretation, the Talmudic interpretation of the commandment of thou shalt not commit adultery. So I'm sure the rabbis had their versions of how to explain this thing. Go ahead.
No, excuse me, the other thing is he's getting to the heart of the matter. And you mentioned it. So there are these physical acts. You can go out, not you should, but you can go out and physically commit adultery. You can go out and physically murder someone. You can go out and physically do this. But where does it start? I believe the Pharisees are looking at this all physical. They're like whitewashed tombs. They clean the outside of the cup, but the inside's dirty type of thing. And I feel like Messiah is trying to come in and saying, I need to rearrange. And I'm glad that you're focusing on you have heard it said, because I can just hear how the Pharisees can take the actual commandments and then just brush on the outside of it, because that's how they're living. They're literally just stroking the outside of their cup, but the inside is nasty. And so Messiah is coming and saying, yeah, this is what I said, because I do believe, again, he's Yahuwah, or Yahuwah has said this. But what was I really trying to relate to you? Why did I mention circumcision of the heart when we had our Deuteronomy study? Because I'm not just talking about the physical acts. I'm not just talking about at the point when you're committing adultery. I'm not just talking about the act when you're physically out there whoring and committing idolatry. It starts in the heart. So you've heard this. Let me say what I'm trying to say behind the scenes. So that's kind of what I'm getting when he's saying all this. It's a heart matter. Don't miss the actual picture, because it doesn't start at the physical act. It started way before then.
Right. There's a cross-reference, Matthew 18, verses regarding offending little children or new believers. I'll start at 6. Matthew 18, verse 6. It says, whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of offenses. Now, just because a mile is put around his neck and he's tossed into the sea, it's not advocating suicide, by the way. Okay, just so people are not taking that. This is a consequence. This is a judgment that's done to him. Okay, it's an execution. It'd be better for him to be executed, repent on his way down, repent on his, you know what I'm saying? You might have a chance getting into the kingdom. Woe to the world because of offenses, for offense must come, but woe to that man by whom the offenses comes. If your hand or foot causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. It is better for you to enter into life lame or maimed, rather than having 2 hands or 2 feet to be cast into everlasting fire. And if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out and cast it from you. It is better for you to enter into life with 1 eye rather than having 2 eyes to be cast into hellfire, Gehenna, fire, Gehenna. Again, ain't nobody really going to be doing these things. I think Yahusha knows people are not going, majority people will not take this route, okay? But that's why we're going to be a lot of people of us are going to be surprised on Judgment Day. There's going to be a lot of people being thrown into the lake of fire. We did not think we were going to get thrown into the lake of fire. And these messages Yahuwah is preaching for let him who has an ear hear and let him who has eyes to see. That's what it is. That's all he's doing. He's preaching the truth, and the real ones are going to get the revelation. The real sheep will follow. The real sheep will obey. You know. Other than that, it's up to the shepherds to sniff these people out and get rid of them when they're found out. But they're going to be mixing in and blending in. All right. What else can we talk about this passage? So we're talking about adultery here, right? Fornicating, adultery of the heart, fornication, sexual sin. If your eye calls you to sin, pluck it out. I think I got that cross-reference. Mark 9:43 is another one. Mark 9:43. It says, if your hand calls you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter into life maimed rather than having 2 hands, to go to Gehenna, into the fire that shall never be quenched, where the worm does not die and fire is not quenched. Mark chapter 9, verse 43. I'm at verse 44. And if your foot causes you, you see, like Yahusha is talking about Gehenna, like it's an actual place, and the fire is a place that you will be awake and alert. It doesn't say how long you're going to be awake. It doesn't give all the extra details, okay? That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist just because it doesn't give more details, okay? Perhaps the person who commits more sin is going to be awake the longest. Perhaps the person who sinned less is going to be awake the least amount of time. I don't know. I just know that there's fire, the worm does not die, and the fire is not quenched. Verse 45, and if your foot causes you to sin, cut it off. It is better for you to enter life lame rather than having 2 feet, to be cast into hell, into the fire that shall never be quenched, where the wormwood does not die. He's repeating himself just like I'm repeating myself today. And if your eye calls you to sin, pluck it out. It is better for you to enter the kingdom of Elohim with 1 eye rather than having 2 eyes, to be cast into hellfire, where the worm does not die and the fire is not quenched. All right. Ezzy, what you got?
So I retract my statement to some degree because I had to be reminded about the wages of adultery back in Leviticus, which is death.
Death.
So, you know, death compared to losing an eye or losing a limb doesn't sound so bad. And just to quote the scripture, it's Leviticus 20, in verse 10. It says, and a man who commits adultery with the wife of another man who commits adultery with the wife of his neighbor, the adulterer and the adulteress shall certainly be put to death. And that's just one reference. There's several in here. So death compared to cutting off an arm or an eye, it's actually not that bad. So I just wanted to bring that out.
Yeah. And again, he's making it the option for the person to make that choice. You know what I mean? Not necessarily that we as judges or elders will make that judgment. Because I think Yahusha understands that the temple is going to be destroyed in 70 AD and we're going to be scattered all over the earth. And we're going to be in other countries with other governments and other laws of the land. So, you know, a lot of, we can't initiate execution in exile. We can't, unless you want to get locked up, unless you want to be called a cult and be on the news channel. Here's Darian El Serrano, cult leader, union worker, local 12 of New York City, Manhattan, locked up in prison for stoning 15 members of his congregation, apparently for committing adultery and slandering other brothers. Like, yeah, that's gonna look real nice, real nice. All right, that's it for that passage. So look, pornography is part of this. Okay, it's unacceptable. There has to be actions to be taking place. An action step, action plan. I'm familiar with this. Action steps, action plans, programs on your computer, accountability.
How does this apply?
How does this apply?
Resources or things.
Canine web protection. If you don't know what canine web protection is, I encourage every man and woman to install this on their phone or on their computer. Yeah, you can do it on the phone. There's a Canine Web has a web browser. It's a web browser.
Okay.
So you can get rid of Chrome, deactivate Chrome. Oh, get app blocker on your phone to block any app you want on the phone. Okay, you can block any app, Play Store, anything like that. Chrome, you don't have it unless you have the password and the code. Okay, and then you download something like a Canine web browser or a safe browser that your husband or your spouse or your wife can use instead of the other one. All right. Like me, I know my wife blocks it. You know, sometimes, you know, she leaves it unblocked and I'm doing well, but, you know, majority of the time it's like, let me block it so that, you know, there's no temptation. So YouTube, I'm on YouTube on my phone when I'm home, but away from home, you know, it's usually blocked. Chrome is blocked. And that's the standard that we have. And we encourage it. If there's nothing to hide, right? People are like, oh, I don't struggle with it, so I don't need it. If you don't struggle with it, then it shouldn't be a problem. It should be easy, right? But some people, I've heard a lot of people say, no, I don't need it. I don't struggle with it. So it is what it is. You're innocent until proven guilty, right? But this is a matter that we got to take very seriously. If you don't know what our fellowship is about, on the flip side, related, we are not against polygamy. Man having polygyny, whatever. Man having multiple wives. Not that we have anybody practicing that in our assembly, but it is something that I, as a leader, I don't consider that a sin. So this passage, you know, this is different for those circumstances. If a person wants to marry another woman, you know, the same desires that I had for my wife before I married her are natural and normal. It's okay to have a desire for a woman. These things are normal. It's okay for a woman to desire a man. But this particular passage is talking about a man or a woman who is married desiring another person and the context is this. As a man, let's say like I'm allowed to have multiple wives. Well, not as an elder. I won't be an elder if I do. But if a man wanted to have another woman, I would know that she's number one, she's not married, she's available, right? And she knows the culture and the commandments, and I would desire her. That wouldn't be wrong. But if there's no covenant, there's no me trying to take her in and be her husband and protect her and the responsibility, there's none of that involved in my thoughts towards this woman, I'm entering into sin, because now it's all about just sexual pleasure and lust. And that's what this is talking about. This is talking about lusting after other women that you are not, or men that you are not in covenant with. Let alone, it is 100% unacceptable 100% of the time to lust after somebody who's married. 100%. There is no wiggle room there. Okay? But anyway, that's just for the record there.
Covenant Eyes is another good resource.
Covenant Eyes you pay for is another software you can download on your computer. I don't know if they still have it or not.
They do.
Yeah.
Everybody gets their own browser, especially for kids and stuff like that. They get their own web browser. They get time. Like you can check on it. Things pop up. So that one's more
You get emails too of where they've been.
Yeah.
If anything's questionable, you'll get an email on what sites that they can tell you where they browsed. So Covenant Eyes is I will warn you, it does, you got to have a good phone or a computer because it takes up a lot of power because it's a program that's running behind a program, so it's running behind your web browser and it's working at all times. So it does take up a lot of CPU, a lot of computer power usage, I think it's called. But Covenant Eyes, K9, the letter K, number 9, web protection on phone or desktop or laptop, iPad, whatever.
And you need an accountability partner.
Yeah.
Because they have to be the ones to unlock and open it. You doing it yourself.
That to me is progress. If people are at least involved in some kind of accountability thing, that to me is progress. And I'm not really hard with people like that because it's showing that they're trying to deny the flesh and crucify the flesh. You know what I'm saying? They're trying. And but it's the ones that are like, oh, I can't help myself and, I'm just a man and I'm, those are the ones I'm worried about. Like, no, buddy, like unacceptable here. So if you're going to be a disciple, got to take this topic very seriously. All right, that's it. Spent a lot of time on Matthew chapter 5, verse 27 to 30.
Bless you, Ezzy.
Ezzy, you got one more thing to say before we stop this recording? No? All right. Shalom.